won't introduce you when you come up to speak.
Queen Lion, almost. Again.
Yes.
Hello, Lion. Yes, I brought a guest this morning, today, Heather Palo. She's the Director of Marketing at Rohr.
Oh, thanks.
Is it my turn?
It can be your turn.
I am giving the mic to Penny first. Penny, President-elect Carrie Ann and fellow Lions and guests. I have 5 happy bucks. Number 1 is Bob went to the doctor last week. He's been cleared for 20 pounds to lift, so you guys all watch him. And he's got a couple more months, and hopefully he'll be good as new. And then my second happy buck is, I have to read my note because I can't remember. Never mind, I got it now. It's for, we'll be gone this weekend. We're going to Dillingham. Yay, I know. We'll be back by Tuesday though. I knew you would miss us. Our granddaughter Abby, and she's our second granddaughter, she's 20, is graduating from Western. And she, yeah, and she's getting her degree in political science and minoring in law, diversity, and justice. And she's applying to law school. I think she's crazy, but and thank you.
Thank you, Penny.
Yeah, right?
Who's going to tell him to stand up before I introduce him?
Stand up, Steve!
Steve Patterson, past district governor.
Thank you, sweet tail twisters. 2 happy dollars. No, let's start with this one. Marilyn and I had the honor of attending 2 graduations on the same day last Friday. One was for the Christian school kindergarten graduation. I mean, it was cap and gown and the whole 9 yards. It was really fun. And then at night we attended the Academy Christian School graduation for our oldest, or one of our older grandsons. And it was like an experience you'll never ever forget. And one of the things they did, which was real touching, was graduates, there were 64 graduates, went and grabbed a carnation out of a bucket and took it up into the stand to give to. There was not a dry eye in the house.
Okay. Well, he had $2 in his hand. I was not being greedy. Jay Pruitt.
There. President Cheryl and
Carrie Ann, she'll be
Carrie
back.
Ann. I knew I was going to make a mistake on that. Fellow Lion and guest. That's just $2. One, just because I'm happy to be here with all these lovely people. And 2, just to say happy birthday to my lovely better.
Are we going to sing? All right, get going.
I want to plug your ears. Happy birthday, Sherry. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, I'm being told, but where is she? Carrie Ann had a birthday last week. And we didn't sing to her.
I forgot to tell her to make her pit stop before
I was
me.
here. Where is Carrie Ann?
She'll be back.
Oh, fluffing her nose. Okay, Patrick.
In a way, I have done that. Gee, President Cheryl, Acting President Carrie goes. Fellow guests. Pretty weird week last week. Had an MRI on the knee. As I was getting into the tube, the guy said, "You claustrophobic?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm a little lightheaded usually." And he says, "Oh, really?" I said, "No, I just have to say that to doctors. Y'all just kind of get all freaked out." So that finally happened. Now, the brace people and the MRI people and Medicare apparently don't know how to talk to each other, because this has never happened in the history of mankind that somebody tore a meniscus in their knee. They don't even know who they are.
Be sure to let them know the brace goes on your leg, not your nose.
Not my knee. Yeah. No, I've been told that many friends will buy me a muzzle if I just ask. So Friday, we had the LCCA, the Contractors Association Cheaters Cup. We came in right in the middle, exactly where you want to be. You don't get any notoriety. Sam and Dylan and my boy Lucky, basically my third son, they all golfed. I rode around in the cart, and we're happy to report no DUIs were received. That we know of. Had a great weekend after that. Following up, went to Seaside to do all the kids' birthdays for the June, July, August birthdays. Had a beautiful house in Seaside right on the water. It was just stunning. And then came back, and it was nicer here than it was there. It was kind of sad. But I'm happy to be back amongst you folks.
Thank you. Miss Carrie Ann Patero is back. Do you have your voices ready? No?
Thank you, that was wonderful.
Of course it was.
President Cheryl and soon-to-be President Carrie Ann have a happy dollar bill. As Lions, we're all about community service, doing things like raising money for scholarships and doing roadside cleanup and wetlands cleanup. There's other things we can do as individuals, and one of them is we can make contributions to other organizations. I have a receipt here for $300.
Thank you.
As a contribution to the Longview Parks Department. And we'll be getting 2 more trees with name tags. And on the little tag in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to say, honoring Pioneer Lions, Wayne Smith and David Smith. So by turning in the receipt, our club gets credit with International, Lions International. So if you do any contributions, save a receipt, give it to Pat. Another thing is recently I donated blood to the Red Cross. Doesn't cost a dime. Just takes maybe an hour. Sometimes you get a little bit of a nice thank you. So we got a t-shirt. And since I'm fat, it's probably not going to fit me. So it's available for free for anybody that wants it. If nobody wants it, it'll go to Goodwill.
Thank you, Dwayne. What size is it so I can advertise that? 2X. It's too big for the girls.
Sleep shirt. Yeah, I like the big ones.
God. Mark, he would not let me steal his notes again. You're getting too quick for me.
We had plenty of time to grab the $5 bill, but... Acting practice President Carrie Ann today. Good to see somebody getting a little experience up there. It's always good for the president to let one of the vice presidents run meetings, so I appreciate that. Dollar number 1, we got to do do a beach run last Thursday. The weather was nice. My wife and I had no grandchild obligations or food bank obligations. So we went down to Gerhardt, Seaside, Warrenton area, and discovered that Seaside has installed a handicap access to the beach. So anybody that has that issue, my wife has mobility issues, we can walk on the firm. They actually have fabric, landscape kind of fabric down over the sand. It's off the end of 12th Street, if anybody goes down to Seaside. Second dollar, we had a poker group that I belong to, and John Claypool belongs to, and Terry Woodruff belongs to. I don't see Terry today, but 6 of us.
Woody's right there.
Well, that's a white hair blended into Marie and Walt there, so it's just kind of, and I can relate to that, but that's okay. We got to go up to a friend of ours that moved up to Union, Washington, which is northeast of Shelton, so it's a bit of a drive, but great food, great view, good times. I was able to install officers at Kalama Lions last night. I was going to announce that last week during Happy Bucks, but didn't have the opportunity, so I was the only Pioneer Lion there, but it went well. And finally, before I get to the quote, I had 2 physicals the week before last. I had the annual Medicare physical, or the annual Kaiser physical, and then the next morning I had to do a Medicare screening physical, which seemed silly, but it was nice because you get to talk to the doctor and kind of go through any questions you might have. And I just happened to ask, okay, so how do you know, I'm getting a little older, how do you know when somebody's old and they need to be put into a facility? I said, well, we do the bathtub test. Bathtub test? He said, yeah, you fill a bathtub full of water, give the person a teaspoon, a teacup, and a bucket. So I said, oh, and a smart, normal person would use the bucket. He goes, no normal person would pull the plug. Would you like a room with a view? Finally, quote of the week from John Maxwell, one of my favorites. I think it's one of Hal's favorites too, if I recall correctly. Success isn't just about what you accomplish in life, it's about what you inspire others to do.
Wonderful.
Oh, I'm gonna plagiarize the hell out of that.
Mark, I want to know who fed and walked the dog while you were off cavorting at the beach.
We took Gracie with us.
Of course
Down
you
to go to
did.
the beach. Yes.
Okay.
Like I said, there's no noise that Thursday, so.
Money, 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 money. That was rude. The most handsome man goes first. Here, Walt. Get him down. Thank you, Walt. And John Claypool for being mean as hell today. Yes. It's a donation to Kiss Me. Oh.
Acting President Carrie Ann, fellow Lions and guests, I have a happy $5. This won't cut down too much on the program's time. 4 of those are happy dollars. One of them Mark touched on already. Poker up at Brian Hart's house. I ate one of the best dinners I've ever been served in my life. It was ribeye steak that covered my plate. Covered that with twice baked garlic mashed potatoes. And then the salad was cauliflower and broccoli, which was sweetened perfectly.
That was like your diet.
After we were done, Brian says, well, is everybody hungry for dessert? And everybody goes, ooh. And he says, good, I didn't make one. The best thing that happened that night is I'm sitting there dwindling through my $5 and it's back up to 4, down to 1, up to 2. But at the end of the night, we play a game called Showdown. You don't have to have any brains, they just deal 7 cards at you, and the best 5 is the winner of the group. I won $14 in the last 2 hands and got the Joe Trophy.
Yeah, okay.
Second happy dollar, always great to see Mike Devlin. Mike, my friend, good to see you. I went golfing yesterday, kind of like Pat did, in the cart and watched my sons knock the golf ball out of the park. Oh, wrong metaphor. Up the fairway. We had a great time. I lasted 9 holes, which is 1 beer and 1 cigar, and went home. Last night, I barbecued salmon, and if I could do that for my poker group, I'd be as popular as Brian Hart is. Last sad dollar. You notice that my only friend, John Krazunas, is not here today. His wife, Patty, had a fall yesterday, and is at the hospital still, so.
Bummer. Thank you, John. And I still like Marilyn, former district governor.
Practicing for president, is that right, Mark? Acting President Carrie Ann Botero and fellow Lions, and yes, I have 2 happy dollars. Another cute little story about the graduation. The granddaughter is the sister to the grandson that graduated, so there's a wide range there. So 2 graduations for this family in one day. Ashlyn, age 6, they're hosting a graduation picnic party at the house, and they decorated the family room with all of the photos that you want to see of Jaden is his name, how he grew up and whatnot, and a poster board. Ashlyn looks at her mom and she says, "Mom, aren't you going to do a poster board for me? It's my graduation too." So Mom says, "Okay, I will." So she started working on this the night before the party. That was Saturday. And she says, "Mom, it's not done yet." And she says, "Well, I know, but I'm working on it." "Well, hurry up," she says. I have the cutest picture of this little girl showing her 2 cousins who are 1 year older. And the little cousin looks at this white gown, they have the cap and the white gown and everything, and he goes, "So, are you done yet?" And she looks at him kind of funny, like, "Well, done?" He goes, "Yeah, are you done? All done now?" And she goes, "Well, no, I'm going to be in the 1st grade." So I guess he thought she was done getting her education. That's worth $2.
And ladies, isn't this the cutest Levi jacket that Marilyn's wearing today? It's so cute. Oh, you don't have to button it, it's still cute. Here it comes. Oh, Mr.
President Acting Carrie Ann, all lines and guests. Acting.
We're good.
Yeah, President-elect too. This is a questioning dollar. Last week I presented past District Governor Steve Patterson a trophy he's supposed to bring to each meeting until he brings a guest. He doesn't have it with him today. I think that he should have to pay bucks every time he doesn't bring it, or bring a guest so he can present the traveling trophy to somebody else.
He's got it in his hand back there.
Oh, you have it hidden. It's small enough you can write it. The next question is, when are you going to bring a guest to the meeting?
Say none of your business. And let me look at your name tag. Mike Gatlin?
Gatlin.
Gatlin, like
Gatlin is what Southerners pronounce it because they can't say Gatlin.
Mike. It's Mike.
Yeah, President Pro Tem, Carrie Ann. Hey, I got it, huh?
You did.
Memory still works. Hey, I have a couple of happy dollars today. One, it's really nice to be here and see all of you. It's been quite a while since I've been here. And also, I'm looking forward to working the chuck wagon and getting all greasy over the grill. So, the worst job in the chuck wagon and the one you have the least interaction with people with. But you know what? I'm up for it. My wife always teases me when I come home because usually by the time I clean the grill up or whatnot, it's around 11, 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
So what's that?
You smell like a barbecue?
Oh, no.
Slides in the
Don't go
middle.
there. But it's kind
kind of funny because I go in, my wife will be asleep, and I just go quietly into the bathroom and take a shower, get all the grease and clothes and stuff, and put them on a towel outside the bathroom, and then I can crawl into bed. But my dog absolutely loves it. Because whatever is left over, burgers and hot dogs, he knows that he's going to get a treat when I come home, and he will get up out of his bed and follow me in, and I have to sneak it back out the kitchen and cut some up and give it to him, and then let him outside, and then go to bed. Anyway, it's great to be here. Nice to see all of you, and I'm just happy to be here, so thank you.
Thanks, Michael G. Keith,
Yes, Isla.
it's your turn.
Thanks. I have 2 happy bucks.
The first one, oh, excuse me. Lion, where'd you go?
Mine in front of
You got that note thing going on. Oh. President-elect Carrie Ann and fellow Lions and guests. I have 2 happy dollars today. The first one is some of you don't know, my wife had a complete knee replacement back on the 1st of May. And yesterday we went down to Vancouver and she got released from the doctor. So my days as nurse ratchet are over. And the second one is to be back here with all you guys. So I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Cool, glad to have you.
We missed you, Keith. All right. Oh, Mike Parker? Did anybody see mothballs or the moths flying around? Because Mike took money out of his pocket.
Acting President Carrie Ann, the live guest. Last night, had a very quiet knock at the door, and I went into the door, and it was an absolutely wonderful young fellow campaigning for somebody. And after I talked to him for a while, I would have rather backed him than who he was campaigning for.
Remember who that was, Hal?
Yeah.
Mr. Woodruff.
Yes, all right. Acting President Carrie Ann, fellow Lions and guests, I got a couple of happy dollars. I too went golfing with my 2 sons last night, yesterday rather, and which is always nice when you've got a kid that's 40 that just hits it about 3 miles down the road and stuff. And just I can't imagine how far pros hit that thing, because he is a ton. Anyway, he shot 72 yesterday for 18, so that's 1 over par. And I shot 97, so there. There's a few more.
3 holes?
3 holes, yeah, no, I quit after 9 too, John. Yeah, and then the other happy dollars is my daughter Jennifer and her family is coming over this weekend, so it's been Father's Day with me, I guess. So
Thank you, Terry. And I believe this might be the last one. Hal.
Thank you, Tail Twisters. President-elect Carrie Ann, fellow Lions and guests, and I sure hope that this next Tail Twister crew lets the other person talk to the microphone more. Don't you believe?
Sure.
What? Okay, got a happy dollar from David Hammond. He had a little cough today. Was going to the doctor because his immune system is not as strong as, say, Mark Kelch's. That's it. Yeah. Just slightly behind that. Second happy dollar, neighbor Mike Kevin. Good to see you, man. Every once in a while I'll see him coming by at about 60 on my driveway, right?
No. I've been calming down to 62.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good.
It's pretty good
But
because
just
it's a
good.
20-mile-an-hour speed limit.
That's right. That's right. And the street is designed for 10 miles.
Just under being a felony.
Yeah, that's right. And I was hearing John Claypool because when I get as old as John, am I gonna rave about a meal? I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I get. And let me see, what is that final happy dollar? Oh, so this lady leaves a message on my phone.
And so I call her back. And she says, yes, that young man that was at my door, he is just so wonderful. I don't know if I'm going to vote for you, but I just want you to know that he's a wonderful man. And I said, well, he's my grandson. She said, oh, you're even luckier, but I still don't know if I'm going to vote for you.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay. Well, and we're running a couple minutes behind, so I'm going to quickly get George Rader up here to introduce our speaker today.
George is gonna go quick.
No. Want me to move that? Rousing, rousing.
Thank you, President Cheryl, President-elect Carrie Ann, fellow Lions. Good afternoon. I got it right this time. I'm really looking forward to today's speaker, Austin Rohr. I met Austin for the first time today. Hal's interrupting my introduction by pointing to the screen, so it doesn't count. Austin is with a group called Northwest River Partners, which I also am interested in hearing about.
Can't hear you, George.
Yeah, that's right. I can't hear me either with Hal.
Yeah.
Got her, Hal?
More or less.
So Austin is with the Northwest River Partners, and I'm interested in hearing about the organization. We already have a well-known organization called the River Keeper, which is a fine group. If you overlook the fact that a bunch of lions come, oh no, wait, I said I wouldn't take that much time, so I won't get on to them. But he's a passionate advocate for Northwest hydropower in its role of clean and renewable energy, and working with other groups to preserve what we have on the rivers. He is I have a little problem here, okay, so I expanded it on the copy larger so I could read it, but I cut off the end of the sentences.
Make up the words.
I have been.
Make it up.
So he is the communications manager for the Northwest River Partners. They educate the region on the benefits of carbon-free hydropower and its impact on our businesses and our transportation in the Northwest. He's the host also of Dam Podcast. Okay? He shares untold stories of public power with energy experts in the region. Austin grew up in the Puget Sound area. He graduated from the University of Washington, Tacoma. Oh, you Cougars are happy about that, I know. And his degree is a bachelor's in communication and media studies. He enjoys exploring the outdoors in this great Northwest on foot, by kayak, and on two-wheeled vehicles, usually with a fishing rod in his hand. So at this time, please help me give a nice warm welcome to Austin Rohr.
So Northwest River Partners is a not-for-profit hydropower advocacy group. We represent around 100 or so members, including community-owned utilities like Cowlitz Beauty, as well as some agriculture, labor, and private business folks. And our mission is to lead the charge for the Northwest to realize its clean energy potential using hydroelectricity as the cornerstone. You can see just here we have a number of different things we work on, but primarily what we try to do is educate folks about hydropower and its important role. We try to make partnerships with groups who are like-minded and those who are not. And we try to make sure that what we're doing is driven by data and supported by the best available research. And then we use that to inform public processes and make sure that the best energy policies for the Northwest are being achieved. So as far as where we are today, what does our energy picture look like? That's where I want to start. And to get on that topic, we're going to look at our energy supply and our grid reliability specifically. Oh, yes, see on the left. The Northwest enjoys a direct correlation between its abundance of hydropower, low energy costs, excellent reliability, and we're actually producing around 40% of all hydropower in the entire nation at the moment. This hydropower is marketed through the Bonneville Power Administration, who is the region's largest hydropower wholesaler, and they have the smallest carbon footprint of any major producer in the nation. So most public power utilities in the Northwest, whether that's Cowlitz or our neighbors to the south of Clark or anyone else, they're getting their electricity from BPA in very large quantities and thus have a very low carbon footprint. In terms of our current energy supply in the Northwest specifically, this graph from the Northwest Power and Conservation Council shows that around half of our current energy supply is coming directly from hydropower. Carbon-emitting resources like coal and natural gas are taking up about another third, and then wind and solar are producing around 11.4%.
Together or each?
Together.
Together. And all the money we spent on that. Yeah.
Well, we'll get there. So hydropower isn't just a major producer of energy, right? It is half of our energy supply, but we also consider it this superpower of renewable energy. A dam allows water to be stored behind it, and I'll have you advance the fun animation here. My former boss created this little animation here. It's something pretty fun that we like to do. So essentially, the water is going to be stored behind the dam, and then that water can be used to harness the flow of the river for energy. The water flows past the turbines, and energy is produced, powering our communities. But the impressive thing is that dams can do this on demand. Holding back water to store potential energy and releasing it when demand for energy increases. This can be used to help wind and solar power specifically. By storing water when the wind blows and the sun shines, it can then be used when those things aren't happening and those resources aren't producing as much. And this is necessary to do every second of every day because energy supply and demand must be in perfect balance every second of every day. The dams are essentially acting as a giant battery for wind and solar and being able to support them. And we need resources like this, whether that's hydropower, nuclear, or even green hydrogen, to fill in the gaps for wind and solar, because currently battery technology hasn't caught up to a point where we can rely on that solely to do this job. Another great thing that we like to show off, and I'm sure you all saw that in the animation, is that we have some excellent fish passage at many of these facilities. So now we can talk about, and yeah, the salmon jumping over there, getting over the dam. So let's talk about now where we're actually going and what this clean energy future that I mentioned looks like. So it is what it sounds like, right? It's a future that is powered specifically by clean energy. The Northwest specifically has chosen what we would describe as a very ambitious path towards achieving this clean energy future. And that path is becoming more challenging in the face of extreme weather events and difficulties with building more renewables to replace existing carbon-emitting resources. And so you can see here, these are the clean energy mandates we're currently looking at in the West. This shows you when the laws were passed and then when the actual deadlines are to meet those demands. Many of them are on target for 2045, or even with Oregon, you have 2040. And so these are really coming up fast, and they're requiring us to essentially eliminate coal and likely natural gas by the deadlines you're seeing listed. In terms of where we're at,
Come on, Al. Okay, you can do it. Come on, Al. You can do it.
and we'll go to the next slide after this one. Okay, perfect. All right, we're all caught up here. So I know, yeah, this is a pretty tough one to read here. It's quite overwhelming, but that is kind of the point, right? So decarbonization is already underway. We have these clean energy mandates that require us to get to 2040 or 2045 to get these resources offline and replaced. But the coal retirements are already happening. And coal is not only representing 12% of our current energy mix, it's also one of these firm sources of energy like we talked about with hydropower. So it's able to ramp up and down to meet our needs on demand. And similarly, natural gas, also being another firm generation source, is under pressure too. So what you can see here is that we have already begun replacing many of these resources and retiring them. And many of these, which you can't really read the numbers because they're so small, are scheduled to come offline in just the next 5 to 10 years. So that brings us to this, right? It's this term resource adequacy. it puts our grid reliability in a very precarious situation. And resource adequacy is what it sounds like. It's a term that describes whether or not the resources that we currently have to meet our energy demands are actually adequate to do so. And at the current moment, we're looking at a very daunting situation. With the offline of coal and natural gas coming, we are also looking at an increasing demand. Specifically, demand for electricity is projected to increase about 30% over the next 10 years alone. Now, we have plans in place to try and meet this demand, to build new resources, as you can see, but the reality is many times trying to do this in 10 years and actually getting it done in 10 years are two very different pictures. And so there is a genuine concern about whether or not we can build out these new resources in the timeline that we're being demanded to. And for context as well, this increase of about 7,400 megawatts is equivalent to about the energy it would take to power 7 cities the size of Seattle. So it's a tremendous amount of energy. And a lot of this, as we know, is not coming because we're building 7 new Seattles in the next 10 years. This is coming from electrification, it's coming from data centers, it's coming from a lot of things that we are adding to our existing portfolio for demand. Now, on the next slide here, you'll see that the warnings are not just coming from one organization, but actually many. All of these agencies have warned of possible reliability concerns, meaning the potential for blackouts in just the coming years. And if you look at this next slide here, what you'll see is that there are many states who are already experiencing blackouts, right? This is really not just a Northwest specific issue, but a nationwide issue in terms of meeting energy demand. But you can see examples of places where blackouts have already occurred due to various circumstances where load outpaced what we had in terms of generation. And then you can also see on the right, there were many close calls. And among those close calls, we see Oregon and Washington are listed here. So these close calls, what we're essentially talking about is we were near having a blackout, but we narrowly avoided doing so. And that brings us to what happened in January. So I'm sure you all remember the storm in January. If you don't remember the cold, you at least probably remember the ice. I think I had about 3 inches of ice frozen onto my back patio at one point. So it was definitely a very cold and very unforgiving storm. But not only was it uncomfortable, it was downright dangerous. The Northwest was under those record-breaking low temperatures across the entire region, beyond just the Pacific Northwest, right? We're talking all the way out into Montana, Wyoming, and beyond. And hundreds of thousands of people lost power due to just damaged lines alone. In total, we know that 17 people were to have confirmed to have passed away, either from falling trees, from being electrocuted in unfortunate circumstances where downed power lines were a real concern. And then we also had people who passed away due to the cold conditions and hypothermia. And so what you'll see on this next graph, and if you want to talk about hard to read graphics, this is certainly one of them. But I'll try and explain what we're seeing here. So this graph comes from BPA, and it shows what was going on during the January storm. We actually hit basically a new record since the retirement of the aluminum smelters in terms of total electricity demand during this time. And during these extreme highs, you know, what we saw is people just trying to keep their homes warm, right? And during that time, we also see that wind and solar, which is listed on this graph as variable energy resources, or VER, actually declined, and they went down to essentially what we would say is zero, right? They weren't producing really anything in terms of generation. However, what we do see is on the blue line, the graph representing what hydropower did. And you can see that the blue line for hydropower is actually following the red line, which is the energy load. And so hydropower during this storm was able to step up and help us meet the demands of our grid. So what you'll see here is, for the bottom line of what took place, the end result is that we did experience a near miss, but we avoided rolling blackouts. Some interesting things also took place during this time. But while the storm was overall threatening and had the potential for loss of life, it's not hard for us to imagine what would have happened if we had actually had a region-wide blackout across the greater Northwest and then all lost power for potentially days. Instead, we can see that hydropower is able to step up. It provided 70% of our total energy supply, and over 10,000 megawatts of energy came from those hydropower projects alone. Something else happened interestingly here. We actually had a equipment failure with natural gas that was just totally a very unfortunate coincidental timing. And so in addition to having wind generation drop to near zero, we also were losing some of our firm generation through natural gas. And what we also saw was that we had to import a significant amount of energy from actually places like California and the desert Southwest. And this came at a really expensive cost. So now we can talk about something a bit controversial here, and that is our very beloved Lower Snake River dams. Next one. Perfect. So let me introduce you all to these 4 dams. They are 4 federally owned dams in eastern Washington state, some of them on the border of Washington and Oregon. And there are a number of groups who would like to see these dams removed in order to help bolster salmon returns. And this is really the front line of hydropower in the Northwest and where we're at right now. And on the next slide here, what you'll see is that these groups, although they represent a minority viewpoint, we've looked at the polling data and they will see that the overwhelming majority of people in the Northwest do want to retain our hydropower resources and these dams. These groups have been able to really promote this idea and get it out there, and the momentum to breach these dams is building. The science itself as to whether or not it would help the fish is a bit mixed. We've seen a lot of different studies and models that show all sorts of wild potential as to what could or could not happen. But what we do know is that breaching these dams does have a direct threat to hydropower and to grid reliability in the Northwest as a whole. And on the next slide, you'll see, I'll summarize this briefly, but the momentum has not just been in media headlines and on social media. This is actually leading to real outcomes for public policy as well. And so last year, and then really over the course of the last 2 years, what we saw is that a lawsuit between environmental groups and the federal government resulted in this settlement agreement over the system operations of the entire Columbia River. And essentially what this boils down to is that public power and utility customers were not actually represented in this process and in this settlement. And yet this is going to dictate energy policy moving forward for all of us. And many have called this the single greatest threat to hydropower by our region's energy leaders. So this is a really big deal, and it's something that we're very concerned by in terms of the momentum and where it's heading. Now, as far as the Lower Snake River dams go, they provide numerous benefits to our region. They currently represent around 3,500 megawatts of carbon-free energy that they have the capability to produce. They also have many secondary benefits. So we're able to irrigate roughly 60,000 acres of farmland and provide access to inland ports as far east as Lewiston, Idaho. There's also a number of recreational and tourism opportunities. I've heard recently that one of the cruise lines that comes out of the lower Columbia here by us and makes their way all the way up to Lewiston and back is actually building 2 new ships to add to their route, because this is an incredibly popular place for people to come to from all over the world and to tour the Columbia River and Snake. And then we also see that these dams represent up to a quarter of the Bonneville Power Administration's operating reserves, which they are required to maintain. On the flip side, we can see that there's guaranteed downsides to breaching these dams. The consequences are likely quite extreme. We see a double risk of regional blackouts, 3 million metric tons of carbon being added to the atmosphere, rate increases for all of us in terms of our energy bills as far as 25% and potentially more, which we'll be talking about. We also see that we're losing a great deal of economic opportunity per year to the tune of 540 million. And along with that, we see as many as 5,400 jobs that could potentially be lost. There's also a reduction in social welfare programs, and we'd be adding around 79,000 additional semi-trucks to our roadways each year. Now, we want solutions for salmon as an organization, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure, as you heard George mention at the beginning, even myself, I like to fish, I'm an angler, I consider myself, very passionate about that. But yet, we want the solutions, and I want the solutions for salmon to be concrete and durable, and to not have such an extreme impact on society. So, looking at this graph here, there's a lot going on, and I'm going to try and break it down. And there's also some animation, so I'll warn you in advance how there'll be a few things to forward through. But the main thing is, if you recall the clean energy mandates, you recall the resource adequacy that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Breaching these dams in particular, breaching the 4 lower Snake River dams, really becomes highly questionable as far as public policy is concerned. We already talked about many of those losses on the last slide, but just looking at our energy picture alone, we're really looking at a very serious and dire situation. If we were to remove the lower Snake River dams, the mandates that we have in place become virtually unattainable, and we would need to add significantly more megawatts of new resources. I called out the PNUC 2024 regional forecast, which primarily focused on load growth and building out the resources necessary to keep up with that load growth. But to actually meet the clean energy mandates that are in place, that requires decarbonization, total decarbonization. And researchers found that it would take a build out of around 160 gigawatts, or 160,000 megawatts of wind, solar, and batteries to meet that need. That's currently over double the amount of electricity generation we currently have online in total. To determine the likelihood of achieving those mandates, researchers then looked at the number of wind and solar resources that we've bought online over the past 10 years, and then tried to assume what our build-out might look like moving forward. So they actually doubled the rate from what the past 10 years has been, and went off of that assumption, while trying to also make sure that they didn't assume for emerging technologies, things like nuclear and hydrogen, which we don't actually have built out yet, and we don't know what that's going to look like in terms of potential build-out moving forward. What we can see is that that build-out is represented by the purple diagonal line on this graph. Now, what you also can see is that on the graph we have 2045 called out. That is when we need to totally decarbonize according to the clean energy mandates in place. Yet the study concluded that, and if you advance the animation here, one slide, and let's do one more. Perfect. So what you can see here is that we're actually only likely to be about halfway to where we actually need to be in order to decarbonize by 2045. It's likely going to take us till close to, and I'll have you advance again, 2075 in order to get to where we need to be to meet those laws. Now, the study determined that since we're looking at a full 30 years after that deadline, we have a significant gap to fill. What you can also see here is that there's a red dotted line at the top of the graph. That red dotted line represents what would happen if we also had to replace the energy of the lower Snake River dams, which would be required to be done with renewable resources like wind, solar, and batteries. So ultimately, in order to meet these clean energy mandates, we're going to need all of our productive hydropower operating at full steam. And even then, we have a huge undertaking ahead of us. The state of Washington, the state of Oregon, and the Nature Conservancy have all predicted that the region's electric generation must double to meet decarbonization objectives. As a final takeaway, I also hope you all can see here that under a scenario like this, which doesn't assume that we're going to have these major breakthroughs in renewable technology, and instead looks at just the build-out that we've had so far and doubling the rate of that moving forward, removing the lower Snake River dams would result in spiking electricity rates up to as much as 65% from where they currently sit, which is a significant jump for all of us to experience. And part of the reason, I'll just quickly share, the reason that that would take place is because when you replace a firm resource, one that can generate and meet demand on demand, with something intermittent, like wind and solar, which relies on the sun to the wind shine to make sure that it can actually produce energy, you have to build more than what you have in place. So you're actually, let's say you have 3,500 megawatts from the lower Snake River dams. You probably need to build anywhere from 8,000, 9,000, all the way up to maybe 15,000 in order to replace those, because you need to have more available in order to cover what you're losing with that firm generation. Now, one more thing, going back to January and looking at what happened during the storm there. During that near miss that we experienced, during those extremely cold temperatures, the lower Snake River dams were actually one of the huge contributors to our hydropower supply. If you remember, I said that we had 70% of our total energy supply coming from our hydropower. But as you can see, the lower Snake River dams in specific follow demand each day. You can see the peaks that are occurring on this graph. Those are happening in the mornings and evenings, times when people are getting up, getting ready to go to work, and times when people are coming home. The dips at night and during the day also represent when people are not as active and not using as much energy. At times, the lower Snake River dams specifically represented 10% of all hydropower being utilized, meaning out of that 70%, 10% alone was coming from just those 4 dams. Now, we looked at this same scenario, understanding that we were extremely close to having a blackout, understanding that we had to import all the energy we could get on top of that hydropower generation. If we removed 10% of our energy supply by removing these 4 dams and replaced them with wind and solar, which we're not producing during the storm, it's very likely we may not have avoided a rolling blackout throughout the region. So let's talk about kind of the key takeaways here, right? What, at the end of all this, do I want you to all understand? What you need to know is that hydropower is essential. It provides affordable, reliable, carbon-free energy to our region. It represents half of our energy supply and around 85% of our current renewable portfolio. In the face of all these energy challenges that we talked about today, from policy to climate change, hydropower can help to meet our region's needs, and it does so every day. The pressure, however, to breach the lower Snake River dams and dismantle our federal hydropower system piece by piece is growing. So if we don't advocate, and I don't just mean our organization, but all of us in the Northwest, all of us communities who rely on these dams, if we don't advocate for them now, we may be at risk of losing them, and that would deal us a very heavy burden. So as far as what you can do, the simplest thing here is to simply sign up. This code here will take you to a page that allows you to sign up for our email list. That's how we send out newsletters, keep you informed of what's going on, and how you can participate in public processes. You can also just go to ourpoweriswater.org. Hopefully that's not too hard of a one to remember, but you can go to ourpoweriswater.org, and that will take you to that email sign up as well. And with that basically wraps it up. So again, my name is Austin Rohr. I'm the Media Communications Manager at the organization. I also host the DAM podcast, and I encourage you all to check that one out. And if you ever need to contact me for any reason, you can either use our contact form on our website, or you can contact me directly using the email here.
Austin, thank you for coming to talk to us today. We have a little parting gift for you, which is our drink mug and a membership application if you find it that you can join the Pioneer Alliance.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah, thank you for being here. We are running a little bit late, so we have announcements to go through, but hopefully we can do that quickly. Greg, do you have something on sight and hearing?
Yeah, I see it. Thank you.
President Acting Carrie Ann, all lines to guests. Tomorrow evening, 6:30 at Canterbury Park is our monthly Sight and Hearing Foundation meeting. Everybody is welcome to attend, see what we do.
So you skip the salmon.
Another thing, Bob and Spike got all of these pins from Lion over near Vandy. Bubble through them and see if there's something that you like there. Plus I have club pins here too. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Karen?
Sorry, I turned my microphone off. Marilyn?
Acting President Carrie Ann, fellow Lions and guests, tomorrow, Wednesday, June 12th, from 1 to 4 at the Lower Columbia School Gardens is a volunteer, honoring the volunteers at the garden. It's a tea, and I know that there is some food there. They'll be doing that. So it's open house. You can come and go. Any of you that have volunteered, you're certainly welcome to come, as well as any other Lion. I will be there part of the day. And I think everything else can wait.
Thank you. Karen, do you want to talk about, we can move that on over, yeah.
President-elect Terry, fellow Lions and guests. I am being Cindy Sessions today, and we are still taking sign-ups for installation dinner on June 28th. So if you haven't signed up and you want to, please do that. Cindy has to turn in a number for the meals when she returns. I think it's like the 17th or something like that, 18th, I don't know, around there. So I am to get payment from anybody on this list who's already signed up as soon as possible. I will also have the list next week, so if you don't have it with you today, please bring next week. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Rick.
Yeah,
Johnson
Rick.
next.
You want to talk about these, please?
Oh, yes.
Please, here.
Acting Carrie Ann. What I put on everybody's table was these lovely buttons that everybody just loves to sell. And anyway, the Lions Club buys $500 worth, and each bag has 10 in it, and if you can sell those, that's another 20 bucks back to the club. So it behooves you to sell them if we can. Greg, or Pat.
I'll get it.
Do you have an invoice? Hal's brother. $500? No, sir, I don't.
Why not?
I haven't got that yet. Invoices.
Why not?
Anyway, I was going to acknowledge that we're doing the tea school gardens tomorrow from 1 to 4. And Marilyn has just told us all about that. And so the other thing is, isn't Thursday a board meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to do the board meeting, and tomorrow, no, after the board meeting, we're going to be popping popcorn for Kessler Elementary School.
Are we selling on Friday?
No, we're done for a while. Rick's not done.
Rick's not done.
I'm done.
He said he's done.
I'm done.
The streets?
Oh, Streets?
No, that's
Wait a minute, Rick, are the
a week from now.
buttons $1 or $2?
$2 $2 a button.
All right.
Okay, all right, I think you're done. Good job, Isla.
I'm plugging my tripping boat.
So just a reminder, we've got a board meeting on Thursday, which is June 13th. So it's this Thursday at 8 a.m. at Cascade Title. We also have an annual Hot Rods for Heaven, which we are helping with on the kettle corn, which is June 22nd. That's at the expo, so just make sure that's on your to-do. I have committee chair sign-ups going around again. There's a couple blank spots. We would love to get somebody in there, so please consider signing up for either a chair or a member of...
Please, please, please.
And then also, just so you're aware that we may not, we're going to talk about that at the board this Thursday, but we may not have a meeting July 2nd, because July 2nd we will all be working somewhere else. So to be determined, but we'll keep you posted. Just wanted you guys to be aware. Sunshine report. None, so Mike Parker has something real quick.
Acting President Carrie Ann, fellow Lions and guests. I've had talked to Ron Stopper quite a bit lately. I talked to him this morning. He's not doing well. He said his heart is really acting up. He sounded as down as I've heard him in a long time. If he's well enough next week, I'm going to bring him to the meeting. hopefully I can. But keep him in your thoughts and prayers, please.